Here we are, still in Cartagena, Colombia, rested, regrouped, and ready to begin the next leg of our journey. Before we hit the road, I just want to remind you to subscribe, hit the like button, tap the notification bell so you don't miss next week's video on Ecuador or any of the ventures that follow. And if you've been enjoying these videos and would like to help support us on the road, we'd be grateful for a small gesture. Maybe buy us a coffee by clicking on the link in the description below. Every little bit helps keep the wheels turning and the stories coming. It was the start of a new chapter in Colombia. Gloria and Joanna had just arrived, full of energy and ready to explore. That evening, we shared a quiet dinner in a world-famous local restaurant tucked into a quiet street. The air was warm and humid, and the smell of grilled meat and fried plantains drifted from the kitchen. We toasted the beginning of a new leg of the Odyssey, excited and maybe just a little nervous about what lie ahead. The next morning, our vehicle arrived at the port. After days of anticipation, there it was, dusty from the journey, but in one piece. It's always a bit nerve-wracking to wait for your gear to arrive when you're in a foreign country. We took a few quick pictures, then got to work. Joanna and I installed the roof rack, packed the gear, and got the inside organized for life on the road. There's something comforting about getting everything just where it needs to be. A mobile home on wheels, ready to support us through the wild ups and downs of travel. We moved into a high-rise apartment for the week. It had sweeping views over the city. On time, Rachel joined us. Mike, delayed by travel headaches, arrived on July the 3rd. He immediately set to work assembling his bike. No small task when you've just flown across the continent. That same evening, a massive storm rolled through, flooding the streets, and even on our 16th floor balcony, rain was driven under the door by fierce winds. We stood in awe, watching lightning flash across the skyline. Colombia was welcoming us with all its power. By July the 4th, we began pedaling south. It wasn't just any day. It marked exactly 1 year since we departed from North Pole, Alaska on July the 4th, 2022. That anniversary gave the ride extra meaning. It was a reminder of how far we've come. Thousands of kilometers, countless memories, dozens of people who had helped us along the way. We took all the necessary photographs before we got underway. The roads were smooth, traffic was heavy, but generally respectful. Getting out of the city wasn't as chaotic as we had feared. For the next few days, we stopped in different towns, each with its own charm. Small plazas where kids practiced their inline skating, women sweeping storefronts, vendors hauling out their morning specials. The first day of riding had gone smoothly, but day 2, Colombia decided to test us. Mechanical problems struck hard and early. Mike's rear shifter snapped, completely useless, so Mike and Joanna had to turn back and return to Cartagena, navigating the traffic and the heat to find a bike shop that could fix it. They got it done, but not without a cost, both in time and money. Welcome to life on the road, where even the best laid plans get thrown out by a busted cable. As if that weren't enough, I discovered that I must have cross-threaded one of my pedals when reassembling my bike after arriving in Cartagena. I was pedaling along when suddenly it just fell right off. I had 12 kilometers to go and only one functioning pedal, so I did the only thing I could do. I flagged down a guy on a motorbike, pulling a small cargo trailer. He was friendly and didn't hesitate. We loaded the bike into the back, and I hopped on the passenger seat behind him. On the second night on the road, was at a beautiful, peaceful beach where we enjoyed drinks overlooking the water, watched the sun dip below the horizon, and shared a delicious meal. It was one of those perfect evenings that reminded us how lucky we were to be on this journey together and a pleasant ending to a stressful day. Day 3 saw us riding through cattle country, flat, green, and cows dotting the landscape. We came upon a cattle drive that covered the highway, and we had to weave our way through the herd. We made a stop at one of Colombia's natural treasures, what is believed to be the largest tree in the country. A massive and ancient tree with thick, sweeping branches and long roots and vines that hung down like nature's own curtain. Its presence was breathtaking, not just for its sheer size, but for the sense of history and life it seemed to hold. We spent a while resting in its generous shade, soaking in the peace, taking photographs, and marveling at the scale of something that had likely stood there for hundreds of years, witnessing generations come and go. Then the terrain began to rise. The riding got tougher, but the scenery grew more spectacular. Along the way, we kept seeing all kinds of wildlife warning signs: sloths, crocodiles, anteaters, even bears. Colombia's roads are filled with these caution signs that make you feel like you're riding through a jungle safari. But here's the funny thing, in over a month of riding, we didn't see a single wild animal, not one. Plenty of dogs, of course, a few cows and chickens, but not a sloth in sight. Maybe they were just very good at hiding, or maybe they were smart enough to stay away from cyclists. We were heading into the mountains, lush, green, and humbling. This was the Colombia I had imagined, wild, vivid, and demanding. We shot a ton of photographs and videos. Every bend in the road revealed another spectacular view. Layers of green hills stretching into the distance, mist rising from the valleys, and the scent of wet earth and blooming flowers filled the air. At one point, I stopped pedaling just to listen. Birds called through the trees, and a nearby stream gurgled quietly below the road. These are the small moments that made the struggle worth it. As we entered Colombia's coffee country, the landscape began to shift. Rolling hills gave way to lush green mountainsides, perfectly suited for one of the country's most treasured exports. We learned that the ideal altitude for growing high-quality coffee beans is between 800 and 1200 meters above sea level, and this region delivered that in spades. The hills were blanketed in neatly planted coffee bushes, with workers weaving between them, baskets strung over their shoulders. And what stood out even more was the pride Colombians take in their coffee culture. In towns and villages throughout the region, we found beautiful little cafes and coffee shops, each one with its own style of brewing, from traditional stovetop methods to modern pour-overs and French presses. No matter how it was prepared, every cup was rich, aromatic, and full of warmth that seemed to define Colombia itself. Eventually, we reached our first big city, Medellín. Traffic intensified, but we found our way to our host, a Facebook friend named Jim. He welcomed us like family, gave us a place to rest and recharge. We explored the city, visiting a small museum about Pablo Escobar and a haunting memorial dedicated to his victims. The contrast between the dark past and the vibrant present was striking. We walked up the famous Comuna 13, full of murals, dancers, and music, a symbol of resilience and transformation. It's amazing how a place once known for danger and violence has become a space of art, color, and hope. After a brief rest, we pushed on, deeper into the Andes. The climbing was relentless. Long switchbacks, steep grades, and plenty of moments where we had to dig deep just to keep moving forward. One thing that caught our eye were these long covered paths stretching across the fields. At first, we couldn't figure out what they were. They looked like tunnels for people or maybe irrigation systems. Later, we stopped at a creamery where we sampled local milk, yogurt, and cheeses. Colombia's dairy products are fresh and full of flavor. We asked about the covered paths. Turns out they're for the cows, so they can walk back to the barn without getting muddy during the rainy season. Simple, brilliant, and uniquely Colombian. At one point, we came across two young toro bulls hauling large metal milk cans up a steep mountainside. The milk was balanced on their backs as they made their slow, steady climb. The men walked alongside, then gave a nod as we passed. When they reached the top, they transferred the milk to the central loading station, where it was collected by a tanker truck. It was a fascinating look into the local dairy system, rustic but efficient. You realize quickly that everything here is done with a purpose, even if it looks simple on the surface. We met a couple of fellow road warriors, including a cyclist from Sweden named John. He had been riding solo for weeks and welcomed the company. That night we shared stories under the stars, traded advice, snacks, and a few laughs. These spontaneous friendships, born from shared struggle and common purpose, are one of the most special parts of long-distance bike touring. Besides meeting a few fellow road warriors, we quickly learned that cycling holds a special place in Colombian culture. It's easily one of the country's most beloved sports, second only to soccer or football. Along the way, we met plenty of friendly local riders, some in full racing gear, others just out for a casual spin. What stood out most was their enthusiasm. They'd wave, ask about our route, and often cheer us on. You could feel their pride in being part of our country where cycling isn't just a sport, it's a way of life. Then came one of the hardest days of the month. 76 kilometers of climbing, cold rain, potholes, and exhaustion followed us all day. My legs were burning and the wind cut through every layer of clothing. But we kept going, one pedal stroke at a time. Finally, we reached a small town and checked into a beautiful hotel. Clean, warm, and quiet. Or so we thought. That night, a karaoke bar right next door lit up with loud music and off-key singing until nearly 3:30 in the morning. We didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Welcome to Colombia. Another interesting part of traveling through Colombia is discovering its unique and often surprising food culture. One staple you'll find everywhere is the arepa, a kind of a corn cake that's especially popular when smothered in melted cheese. These are sold at countless outdoor stalls and roadside stands, often served hot off the grill. If you're in the mood for something greasy, like fried chicken, Colombia has you covered. Literally, they hand out thin, disposable plastic gloves so you can dive in without getting your fingers oily. It might not be finger-licking good, but it's practical and very Colombian. And don't be surprised to find quail eggs served at snack stands, sometimes boiled, sometimes fried, and always served in generous portions. Street food here isn't just quick and cheap. It's full of flavor and personality. Speaking of food, one of the joys of traveling through Colombia's lower altitude regions was the incredible variety of fresh fruit. Everywhere we went, there was roadside stalls and small town markets bustling with color, juicy papayas, ripe melons, sweet grapes, and all sorts of tropical fruits we couldn't even name. It wasn't just the variety that impressed us, it was the abundance. In many areas, market gardening seemed to be the way of life, with neat rows of vegetables and fruit trees growing right up to the edge of the road. We often stopped to grab a handful of grapes, a slice of papaya, still warm from the sun, was a constant reminder of how rich and fertile this country really is. At the end of the month, we reached the border with Ecuador. After countless climbs, unforgettable sights, and wild Colombian weather, we crossed into a new country. Tired, proud, and ready for the next chapter. Colombia had tested us, surprised us, and welcomed us with open arms. The road ahead was still long, but this first month on South American soil had reminded us why we ride, for the beauty that challenges and the stories. And just over the border, Ecuador was waiting, with volcanoes, altitude, and one of the most breathtaking stretches of our journey so far. You won't want to miss it.